In today's episode of the Maverick Mystic Arts podcast, we are going to be discussing a question from a student on Akasha and stages that practitioners will go through as we begin to unfold a deeper recognition of the Akashic place view. So, this particular question was in regards to apathy, and apathy arises initially from a misinterpretation, or can arise initially from a misinterpretation of equanimity. So every time that we take our current perception of what a word means or what a state might mean, and then we impose our current ideas on that, we will forever be missing the actual thing that we might be seeking. So equanimity, very often in the beginning of the path, we hear about equanimity, we read about equanimity, and it seems like it is a place of peace, unreactive peace. And so what we do is we try to fabricate equanimity. We try to fabricate non-reactivity. We try to fabricate an inner sense of peace. And this is very often done through cultivating apathy, through cultivating indifference, right? And this is very much a doing type of thing. Now, as you progress, you start to unwind all the doings, and it's very difficult at that point for this particular issue to arise. But until then, you are doing indifference, you're doing apathy in an attempt to create the illusion of the pedestalized equanimity that we've read so much about and heard so much about. So what happens with this indifference, with this apathy that we are doing, is it's a type of contraction that increases the separation between perceived self and the environment. So this will, of course, slow us down eventually. But in the beginning, it's so nice. You feel free, you feel peaceful, you feel calm. And, it's a stage on the path. Now, this separation, as we start working more and more akashically, of course, it starts to dissolve. But this doesn't necessarily dissolve all at once. We don't necessarily find an absolute view of emptiness, of akashic inseparability, of akashic interconnection and emptiness right at the beginning. There'll be phases of it. There'll be a little bit here, a little bit there. And so this can help in the cultivation of indifference and apathy. So you might notice from the perspective of an individualized self or identity that the object that you're looking at isn't there, that it is empty. But that is the subject viewing the object as empty, right? And so then you start looking around at the world, at the environment, and you start perceiving the emptiness of the environment around yourself, around your subjective self. So it's all not real. This leads to a type of spiritual nihilism and apathy. The other side of it is that you view or start to resonate within the emptiness of yourself, right? Maybe reside in the emptiness of yourself, and you view the external as the subject is something that exists. The object of you doesn't exist, or the subject of you doesn't exist. The object that's out there does. And so now, this is all a bunch of phony stuff, right? It's all a bunch of fake stuff. It's just a bunch of stuff, right? And that's because the subjective emptiness that you're starting to experience within yourself is still in differentiation to the objects around you. So the interplay of subject and object become a very tricky thing to navigate, because we start to fall into the Akasha of subject, or fall into the Akasha of object, or perceive from the Akasha of subject, or perceive from subject the Akasha of object. And this goes round and round and round. And eventually, over time, what happens is these start to merge. So often, like the base beginning level of what we might call samadhi is when subject and object merge, they become one thing. And samadhi, or usually initially attained through concentration, can be a very nice exercise to help cultivate Akasha, to cultivate emptiness. And it's done through concentration. Through concentration, the emptiness sort of starts to accumulate, or the potential of that emptiness, maybe that's a good way to describe it. The potential of that emptiness starts to become more available in our recognition through the concentration. So you practice the concentration, you develop the concentration. Through that concentration, subject and object start to merge. From there, you have a type of peace. Now, this type of peace you might look at as an equanimity, but unfortunately, this equanimity is causal, essentially. It is caused by concentration, which means aberrations of concentration will rob you of that equanimity. So at that stage, concentration is then used as a tool to help increase, or at least continue, the apathetic indifference, which is one, enemy, we could say, near enemy of equanimity that can arise. Okay, so let's continue on here. We have subject-object, we have Akasha, we have the eventual understanding of the Akasha of subject, of object. Those become one Akasha, and then things start to get weird. And when we progress through this, we continue to the next phase of looking at appearance, of looking at form, and of looking at equanimity, right? Which is acausal equanimity instead of causal equanimity. So, as we mentioned, causal appearances of equanimity. Causal equanimity is the connection to, or the need of, stillness of mind, absolute concentration. It might be the need for a stillness of perceived balance of the elements, right? Say balancing earth, water, fire, air, and then needing those, locking them in. And that would again be a concentration type of aberration that is still actually detracting our connection to equanimity. So as equanimity starts to develop more truly, more fully, and evolving over time into a deep and profound Akashic realization, what happens is the elements are not locked in place. Concentration, movements of mind are not locked in place. These are not causal requirements for equanimity, and through that for Akasha. The elements are free to dance. Appearance of mind is free to dance. Appearance of the astral emotions, the flux, the ebb and flow, it's free to dance. Energy is free to move. It's free to dance. So this ebb and flow then becomes it's allowed. It's not being locked into. So you're now surrendering into equanimity instead of contriving equanimity. You are letting go. And as you let go more and more and more and more, the expansiveness of the Akashic view, it continues to expand out and in. It goes into the emptiness and out into the emptiness. Infinity exists within as it exists without. And this becomes a continuing evolution. So the subject and object continue to dissolve. That which is perceived subject and that which is perceived object continue to dissolve. Then there, of course, is the aspect of, depends on like what layer of the like reality you want to look at, but the recognition or the knowing type of thing, the recognition of that whole process that's occurring also evolves. So you have the knower, the subject, the known, the object, and the knowing, or that actioning, that verb that is linking these two things. And those three over time also dissolve. And then you get into just the space of the ultimate weirdness. And it's a lot of fun. And it also isn't. So, party time. Now, the cultivation or dissolution of knower comes through the Akashic underbelly of the sameness, we could say, the space in which knower and known exist. And often at this stage, there's still a recognition of, or a knowing that's occurring. There's an action that's occurring, a doing that's occurring. Just as the you're knowing the known, you're knowing the knower, and then we have to get into that middle space and start to unwrap the knowing of the knowing. And that breaks down or cracks open the potentials for further Akashic dissolution, we might say, or further Akashic connection. Okay? So all of this is to allow it's to allow the freedom for greater and greater potentials of light and appearance, of electric and magnetic, to dance and start to interweave within a grand space of very pure equanimity, because nothing is being impinged upon. How can you, because what happens when you're in that Akashic place is you're in something not quite that, but you're in the indifferent stage or the apathetic type contrived place, is there is a removal of the individual from the experience, right? In an attempt to maintain that perception of peace and equanimity. And this is one of the downsides of mindfulness practice, is that you cultivate a type of separation from the moment, separation from the environment. But if the subject and the object are one in the grand recognition of Akasha, then well, how can you not be immersed fully and completely in the moment, in the appearance, in the form, the arisings of that moment? You have to be. And the difference is that it is not reflecting off of the enclosed, contracted, habitual identity, right? So this will constantly evolve, and one of the things that will always hold us back is imposing knowns onto the unknown. All of this stuff is experiential again, for lack of a better word, experiential reality or non-experiential reality. And these are stages that you go through. And so they only mean something once you're there. Right? It's meaningless if you're not there. But when you do start to navigate this stuff, it's good to hear or read somewhere, however you come to that knowledge that, oh, this is kind of where not necessarily where I might be at, but something I might be navigating at this current moment. And there's different directions you can go. And what are the easy pitfalls to fall into? What are these near enemies that are so easy to stumble into and then to latch onto and hold and deify as our own great attainment? They're so easy. It's so easy to connect to that stuff and to hold on to it. So once we have heard about these things, then we can start to reflect that through what's happening and through our own relationship to what's happening, and hopefully navigate this all from a place of greater freedom and dissolution. And then we can progress more quickly along the path and do less damage. Okay? Because in the beginning, when we're starting to have these initial experiences of Akasha from the perspectives, once again, of the subject disappearing into emptiness, of the object disappearing into emptiness, but it's not full. It's not a full scope, all encompassing, penetrating, and permeating Akasha, then we do run into these issues, these apathies that start to arise, these jaded types of perspective. And, it's something that can do a lot of damage to ourselves and to the world around us. Because what's happening in and as of us expresses out, right? Expresses in, expresses out. And so what you bring with you is part of every encounter that you have, whether it's with a tree or bird. I happen to be looking at that right now, or whether it's with humans and people, conversations, human interaction, with a plant you might be growing, a farm you might be running, whatever it is, you can't run away from yourself. Because the you that's running away from yourself is the same thing as the self that you're trying to run away from. So through that latching on and dispersion and separateness, you actually help to consolidate the continued existence of that separateness, which of course is in contrast to the place that we're moving into, because it is a holding, a grasping, a clinging, a tension, right? All right, I think that's everything I have to say at the moment, because my brain now has shut off. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Take care, have fun, practice. Bye.